Welcome back, everyone, to Quadrant 4 Politics. I'm here with my good friend Riley.
Hi, I'm Riley.
That's Riley, and this is Quadrant 4 Politics. Please make sure to send us any questions or comments at quadrant4politics@gmail.com. That's the number 4, not spelled out, but the number. Also, listen to us on any of your favorite streaming
Streaming services.
Yeah, got YouTube, got Spotify. Are we on Amazon or something?
Not Amazon. I don't think we are. We might be on Amazon, but I know for sure we're on like Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts. The most popular ones we are, and then some little ones. I can't remember all of them. But we're on like 8 audio only streaming services, which is pretty dope.
Alrighty, well, you guys are back to listen to me and Riley hash out some more political questions. But you know, Riley, before we started this, I didn't say this to you, but I've been going through people's Facebook lately because I've been on Facebook.
Facebook is where happiness goes to die.
It's because I've been at work, so to get onto Messenger to talk to people, because I use it more than texting.
Yeah.
I'm on it, but then I see people's posts. Otherwise, I don't really go onto Facebook. I don't ever post anything on Facebook.
Yeah, except for the vaping thing you post on Facebook.
Well, every once in a while, I'll put some out there.
I think that was exclusive. I've never seen you post anything else, but that was something you were serious about.
Well, it was to a news site, and it said, "Do you want to post on Facebook too?" And I said, "Sure."
Ah, cool.
So, because that was directly to them. I wasn't just saying that to the people.
Well, you wrote a paragraph.
I wasn't just saying to the people on my friends list, though. I was telling the Tacoma
Should we have a
Tribune.
vape episode?
No, but anyway.
Half the episode will be us just vaping super loud into the mic.
Anyway.
Yeah, man, vaping should totally be legal.
Vaping is legal, just purchasing the liquid isn't. But anyway, that's not the point. The point is that I have a relative that posts all this super pro-Trump stuff, and I have another relative that is more mild about it, and I have a lot of liberal friends posting about college being free and how this corporation or this billionaire is an awful person, and it's just getting really tiring.
It is.
So, again, we're called Quadrant 4 Politics, but we want to stick to ideas. Ideas are more important to us than issues. So if you guys want us to discuss any specific issue, again, write in the comments or email us and let us know. But I like to stick to ideas. So
yeah, ideas are good because in the end, politics are pretty much just drama. Everything on the news is just drama, you know. But if that's what the audience wants to hear, I'm happy to talk about it. I have lots of thoughts about, Trump and...
Yeah, I just don't stay up to date, especially since Trump's been president. I mean, it's too much crazy.
Yeah.
He's too crazy, and then the media pushing it and pumping it back out.
Yeah.
Too crazy for me. So, anyway, again, we are doing, just like last week, we are doing pulling questions from the Political Compass test, which is not something we fully support or endorse, but it is what our name Quadrant 4 is based off, because it's a libertarian conservative podcast. We also got some new, maybe more interesting questions from a site called isidewith.com. It shows you kind of where you are politically, but more so it kind of lines you up with political candidates. So let's start.
What do you want to start with?
Let's start with the Political Compass question.
Okay.
Last time I was wrong about which one would be more interesting, or I don't remember if I was wrong. I just know.
I think the I side with one was more interesting because the second one was the Marxist one, the Marxist quote.
Yeah, I thought that
was confusing. I mean, it led to a decent discussion, but
then that's where sometimes we just don't even talk about the question. We just talk about whatever else.
So Matt is Jesus is channeling himself through Matt right now, helping him choose a question from the bag. Because
this is how Donald Trump legislates, right?
Yeah.
Jesus is guiding my hand right now. I want our listeners to hear me.
That picture is so cringy of Jesus holding the pen that Donald Trump is holding, signing his
We're
name.
talking about what Riley brought up last time about his grandma's
I'm
post.
sure everyone has seen that fucking picture.
I haven't seen it.
You haven't seen that picture?
No.
I'm pretty sure they did it with Bush as well. Because, the fucking Republicans.
At
and their
least you could
Jesus.
claim Bush was a Christian. Like,
Yeah.
you can't really claim that with
Yeah,
Trump.
if there's
and people
anyone
who
out
believe
there,
that,
yeah,
they're stupid.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm sorry, but if you believe that Trump is a Christian, you are a retard.
and to my fellow Christians,
That should be the defining factor of if you can vote or not.
to my fellow Christians,
Like the first question on the ballot should be, do you think Trump is a Christian? And then if they say yes, just throw the ballot away.
the Christians who do think he is a Christian are going to say, well, you don't know his heart. And it's going to be like, well, he speaks it a lot. So.
Yeah.
Jesus has led my hand, so
Yeah. So there's a
He's asking me to-
question
he's
signed by God.
he's asking me to hold this question and let you speak, though.
I saw something interesting. Apparently, I don't know. I don't remember it too well, but apparently Trump has written so much on Twitter that he's written more than the book Ulysses, which is like a historical novel.
Ulysses.
Yeah, by, I don't know, is it Homer or
Yeah,
someone?
Homer, yeah.
Apparently he's written more on Twitter than that book has in length, which is pretty interesting.
Probably all of his Twitter, though, like before he was president.
Also, yeah, definitely,
Yeah.
because he wrote a lot during the Obama years. But also, real quick, last week Tonight with John Oliver, the most recent episode that I saw was about election, like voting machines, and apparently in other states, like there's three options. There's our state where it's a paper ballot completely. There's another state where it's a digital screen that prints out a paper ballot and then you insert the paper ballot. And then there's states where it's all digital, all on a computer screen, a touch screen. And apparently those things are like super like easily hackable, and like they're left out in the open days before the election. And there's like this guy who goes around and takes pictures of himself with the voting machines. He can just walk into
Yeah,
like
but
a
are
school
they
gymnasium.
set up to like actually start receiving?
Well, that's the thing is,
votes?
if you know what you're doing, you can set them up real quick and get it done. There was another clip he showed in that. I should send you the link because
There's
it's a pretty
probably
good video.
ways to
but,
check it beforehand. Like they probably
well,
have to
you'd
check
think
and
that,
make
but
sure
it sounds like. I mean,
it's
that's the
zero.
thing is that can we really trust government? Government's not good at doing their job. They're not good at technology.
Well, if we, the people, hold them accountable.
Yeah, but we're bad
it
at
would
that
be-
too.
Well, then, because we're supposed to be the government.
Yeah.
That's why we get to do referendums
It's-
and all that stuff. So,
I don't want to go too much on a tangent. Let's get to the question.
all right, this God-selected question.
Yep.
Jesus has chosen.
Jesus says. Is it a good
Mothers,
one?
it is a good one.
Okay, good deal.
Mothers may have careers, but their first duty is to be a homemaker.
Goddamn right. Make America great again,
That's right.
motherfucker.
Make it great again.
Mega.
So, for some reason, this is where Jesus led my hand, like he leads Donald Trump's legislation.
Oh, Jesus.
But maybe
Can I read
Jesus
it again?
is just helping him with his handwriting. Like, can we say for sure?
Have you read his signature? It's pretty big.
I think his signature is kind of cool.
It is kind of cool, yeah, but it's also like, what the fuck does it say? Does he
that's
write
true.
out J?
It's-
Is J for Jonathan?
It's for John.
I'm going to read this again. Mothers may have careers, but their first duty is to be homemakers. I have a lot of thoughts about this one. What do you think?
I have a lot of thoughts about it too, and I'm a little scared.
Do you want me to go first?
Yeah, why don't you go first?
I'll be labeled the sexist. I'm fine with that. So something interesting, actually. My girlfriend's father said this recently, and this isn't something I agree with, but it was just interesting coming from a boomer's perspective. Have you seen the "Okay Boomer" meme?
I just heard about
It's
it today
really
and have
funny.
no idea what it means.
It's just whenever a boomer, like a baby boomer, whenever a boomer says something like mean about millennials, what you're supposed to say as a millennial is, "Okay, boomer." Just like brushing them off kind of thing, like, "Okay, boomer," whatever, because boomers ruin the world, according to millennials. I'm not sure if that's true or not.
And probably vice versa. Okay.
Anyways, so my girlfriend's father said something interesting. He said that feminists gave up, like women gave up everything because of feminists, because back in the day, back when America was great, women didn't work, and they were just the home takers, taking care of the babies and cleaning the house and stuff like that. But then when women, were like, we want rights, we want to vote, they started getting jobs, and landlords looked at that and said, all these households now have double the income, so we're going to double the rate of rent and stuff like that. So everything became more expensive when women started working, just because each house had 2 incomes. And that was something that women regret. Well, that's what my girlfriend's father said, that was something that women regretted, is like, we gave up all of our freedom because we wanted the same rights as men. And that's not something I agree with. I just thought that was an interesting thing that he said. Personally, I fully support women working. I don't think women should be forced to have children. I don't believe that women are baby makers. I think there's too many people on this planet. I'm a huge supporter of abortion. It's if a woman wants to work, that's awesome. I would personally love to be with a woman who is really wealthy and work, so I didn't have to. I would happily be a
What if she
homemaker.
What if she wanted you to be the homemaker? She was really wealthy, but she wanted to have a child with you.
It depends on how wealthy she is. I hate children, but for the right amount of money, I would do anything.
All right. It's like hire a nanny to take care of it.
Yeah, right. Seriously. Like, yeah, the child's there, like, in the same room as me, but there's someone else taking care of
And you're
them.
sending positive vibes.
Yeah, like, good.
Like a millennial said.
I'm going to be over here fucking playing video games.
So, I think I wasn't thinking of this the same way as you. So I guess the question we start with is, do women have the obligation to have children? And to answer that, I say no. Women don't have to have children. I don't think within my Christian value set that women are solely baby makers. I think they are, it takes 2 to tango, and I think it takes her to push it out and carry it and whatnot. But I don't think anybody has to do that. Just like, there's biblical views on marriage, but what it doesn't say is you have to get married,
Except for, I think, Catholics and Mormons both, I think, encourage women to have babies.
And I know Mormons encourage families and marriage.
Yeah.
And Catholics I think Catholics tend to have big families because there's also a lot of Latino Catholics, and they produce in higher numbers. I don't know what the correlation to that could just be some comment that is now racist. But so the next question then becomes, when they have the children, what is their function? My personal belief is that a child is better off with its mother than in daycare. Now, it could be better off with the father as well, but as much as society or the left wants to change things, men, for the most part, are still typically breadwinners, or now it's 2 breadwinners, and the woman falls into the position of homemakers. The problem is, what I would have advised differently during the female revolution thing is explain to the men that your job of homemaker, specifically having and caring for the children, is just as important, if not more important, than his job. And I will say that I believe women have the harder of the 2 jobs, and any woman who can get past society's pressure to have you put your kids in daycare and go get a job so you can be a successful woman, and then eventually have a breakdown because you're doing way too much crap between your kids and your job. Any woman who can get past that and say, I'm comfortable being a mother, I'm comfortable being a wife, I'm comfortable cleaning the house a little bit more because I know my husband's at work 8 or 10 hours a day, or he's in traffic or whatever. Like, I applaud you. I was in psychology class in 11th grade, and we were all talking about what jobs we want to do, and this girl in class said, I just want to be a mom and have a family, and everybody looked at her like she was crazy. And I was like, I think that's very honorable. Like, she's basically saying, I want my first choice to be my kids and my family. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that view, because I'm not saying women can't have jobs. I'm just saying that I think it's beneficial for everybody when there's a solid family unit. Just like I wouldn't argue against divorce, but I think things end up better when things are worked out. in that same psychology class, my teacher taught us that, he said, who here believes that if you are in an unhappy marriage, you should split up? And just about the whole class raised their hand. And he said, that's really interesting, because when I was a kid, we thought of it as an arrangement for the whole family. You have kids, you get married, you have kids, you bring them into the world, and then you break up. It's not just about those two people, it's about the family. You've made a contract to those kids that...
I think that depends on how toxic the situation is, because it's not good to have kids around a couple that are yelling at each other all the
that's
time.
why you should decide these things very carefully and ahead of time, and plan and use birth control. And that's the problem, is the right gets labeled as hateful because of its views on family and abortion. And the fact is if we also did the whole personal responsibility thing, we wouldn't have to have this argument, because people would get on the pill.
If they would lay off the sex till marriage thing as more of a responsible thing and less of a religious thing, I think they would get more supporters that way. But it's seen as such a religious thing, you shouldn't have sex until marriage because God wants you to save yourself for your significant other. And so, liberals are like, fuck that, I'm gonna start fucking people right away. But instead, waiting until marriage for sex, which is not something I condone or have done, but waiting until marriage for sex is responsible, But then again, people also rush into marriages so they can fuck.
That gets into a whole different discussion, because the thing is society's just so different than how it used to be, and maybe that's what these preachers mean when they say Satan has taken over this world. It used to be that you guys could know each other for a few months and get married and somehow make it work for 80 years.
People it's like Hank Hill. He's my favorite. How his view of the world is don't hold my hand in public, Peggy. It's too indecent, kind of thing. He's very conservative in his sex life and romance life.
Well, but what we find is that some of that, I don't know necessarily about Hank Hill, but we find that Hank. Some of that stuff worked better. With the back before the sexual revolution, we can say that certain groups were suppressed and whatnot, but was society overall better? I don't know, but we have too many kids nowadays growing up in split parents' home, single parents' home, kids growing up without fathers.
We also don't know, you and I are pretty young, we also don't know exactly what it was like back in the day. You can watch the Andy Griffith Show. Did you ever watch that growing up?
Yeah, a few times, yeah.
It's you could see that, and that was a depiction of what life was supposed to be like back then. That's what they wanted life to be like. And that's my only view of what history was like, but we don't know what was actually going on back then. Maybe things were a lot worse in a different way, those were the times where women were expected to create babies and that men were abusive husbands, and that was just accepted by society. In the sexual revolution, maybe it made us less responsible as people, and we encouraged us to have broken families, but they also encouraged women to stand up for themselves and not let a husband abuse them or just be seen as a baby maker. I'm not disagreeing with you. No. I'm just playing devil's advocate.
When I come to it from a Christian view, the Christian view is that the husband's not supposed to be abusive or disrespectful to his wife. That is not his role. And so I think that was more. I don't know how many households that happened in. It still happens in households, and there's also I didn't even there's battered men's shelters. Did you know this, Greg?
Oh yeah, women are terrible.
But anyway, so to answer the question, if you're asking me legally, should they have to put their homemaking responsibilities in front of their careers? Absolutely not. But the question is, mothers may have. See, it says mothers may have. If it says mothers should have, or mothers could have careers, but their first duty should be to their home and family, I would say agree. But when it says mothers may have careers, but their first duty is to be homemakers, well, no, not all. If you want to be a couple, a marriage of two with no kids, that's fine, but just realize that with that baby comes responsibility, and what are you going to do with it, and are you prepared to take care of it?
I think my final thought on this is I think it's a lot of nature thing. I think that women instinctually are caretakers of the babies. I think that's just an instinctual
And they're also
thing.
caretakers of men. Like,
I hope that that's not a sexist thing to say, but I just think that women are more motherly. But I think that men are also less motherly. Like, I think when a couple has a baby, if both of them are working, the woman is going to be more inclined to take care of the baby, and the man's going to be like, yeah, I like the baby, but I'd rather go to work, for 8 hours a day than take care of the baby. And I think that's just the way that most situations end up. I'm not saying that that's the correct way, and I encourage people who do it the reverse way. But I just think that that's naturally
is
for
the
humans.
correct way, because biologically that mother has a connection with the child that the dad can't have. And also the mom's the one that feeds it. Like, you can give the baby formula or whatever, but like nothing compares to breast milk. So, like, and there's this new campaign called something about like it's not just women who can breastfeed, and it's like, yes, it is. Like, that's how it works. And
that might be a transgender rights kind of thing.
It didn't have to do with transgender. It had to do with like having men do more of the caretaking part, which that's fine, but don't say that women aren't the only ones who can breastfeed, because that's not the truth. The truth is, like, we can argue it from a cultural or a spiritual standpoint, but when we do it from a biological standpoint, the fact is mothers want to be with their babies, and we see lots.
They also have to recover from childbirth. They can't work during that
exactly,
time.
And we see lots of women that take up careers, and some of them, and then they'll be off for many months, and then some of them will just decide, this is what I want to do. I want to be a mom to this child, or they'll say, I want to resume my career, and then they do. Either way, it creates some sort of interruption in the workplace, but that's not what this is about. And I've never seen it create so much of a disruption that, like, I've ever had to close doors or anything. But, there's biology at play here. And, also it goes back to when, work was more manual, and that's why men did it, because their bodies couldn't produce babies, but hey, they did have more muscle mass. So
They could lift rocks all day.
There's so much, like, there's so many ways you can come at this question, but I guess I would say, I don't remember how I answered it originally, but I guess because of how it's worded, I would say
Disagree?
Yes, sorry, but the spirit of the question, like what it's trying to get across, and this is why we should write our own test, I would say agree. Like, it's better when a child is raised by their mother than in daycare, and I speak from experience with that.
But do you think it's better to be raised by the mother than the father? Like,
I don't know that there's enough.
Do you think it's a better situation for the mother to be stay-at-home than the father to be stay-at-home?
I used to think that. Now I would say, I guess, undecided. But in any case, I would say it's better for one of the parents to stay home than...
Just because a woman chooses a career over caretaking doesn't necessarily mean that it goes to childcare. I mean, it could
be the grandparents
or the father could work a day shift and the woman could work an evening shift, and they
But
switch
then
who's
is that
taking
good
care
for the
of.
family? That brings in that aspect, like if the husband and wife...
Unfortunately, in this economy, we've been forced to... we need two incomes, because apartments are expensive. But we won't go into that. You ready for the next one?
Yes.
Do you want to do another political compass test, or do you want to do an I side with?
Let's do an I side with.
All right. Matt, let Jesus take the wheel.
Well, Jesus took the wheel on that one, and we're probably going to be sexist.
Yeah.
Labeled sexist.
If we were more famous, or if we ever get famous, they're gonna have a lot of material against us.
Yeah, we could never run for political office. Like,
they're gonna cut this up and make all sorts of bad quotes.
Yeah.
Good times.
But
Good times.
I mean, what it comes down to is just, speak what you believe and be open to changing your mind and be honest without being, harsh or whatever, and understand that people believe differently, and just, you do you.
Yeah. We can't let the culture war take us in the direction that you can't recover from the sins of your past, and you can't grow as a person and stuff like that.
And that's kind of what it's become.
That's
like,
what Twitter wants us to, that's the future Twitter wants, is you can't be, if you're anything but perfect, you're, a criminal.
And it's like, that's how politics works now, is like, let's figure out the worst things about my opponent and bring up what they did 20 years ago, so. But anyway, the question, I don't remember if Jesus guided my hand on this one or not.
By the way, with these questions, if there's any that, we both think are pretty bad or you think is pretty bad, we can ignore them. There are some foreign policy ones in here, and I'm not super informed on foreign policy kind of stuff, so we can ignore those ones.
I'm probably
or just briefly
slightly
discuss
more, but I'm more interested in domestic.
Like, if you look at, like, what's going on in the Middle East or, like, Israel, a lot of that, like, my brain just turns to mush on that kind of stuff.
I just let the generals
glaze
take care of
over
that.
in my eyes. It's like, why? I'm kind of an isolationist in that aspect. Like, I just don't think we should be involved in that stuff. But we'll get that question when we get there. Is it a good one?
This is a good one, Riley.
Oh, nice.
This is a good one.
I like it.
Should immigrants be required to learn English?
Should immigrants be required to learn English?
And had you clicked other stances, this would be a longer slip of paper, as we talked about in the last episode, but it would have my answer on here.
Oh, yeah?
But
what's your answer? It sounds like you've got it locked and loaded.
Yeah, my answer is we must first declare it and make it our country's official language, or states need... No.
Huh.
America doesn't officially have an official language. Or states need to have official languages, like perhaps whatever the top two spoken are, and wherever that immigrant lives. Like, for example, if somebody migrates from Mexico...
Migrants?
No, if they migrate,
or
okay. I guess emigrate from Mexico to New Orleans, is it less American if they learn French? And is English really American in and of itself? No. But the thing is we want them to assimilate. And when I say assimilate, I don't mean leave your culture behind, but I mean be able to, mingle with the current culture we have.
Yeah.
Or at least society. And I think that's done a lot better if they at least have basic understanding of English. And I wouldn't say, building on this, I wouldn't say that they should have to be denied entrance in if they don't know English, but maybe during that learning, or maybe during that period before they become a citizen, they could be required to be enrolled in classes. And, I know there's lots of like free public classes. For example, I know somebody right now who married a woman who doesn't know very much English. She came from Mexico, and just down the street from where he lives, she goes to a class where she speaks with other people, learning English as a second language. And that shows that she's trying to make it to where she's putting herself into, she realizes I'm in America, so I'm going to be part of the American family, Yeah. And so...
In one sentence, what is your answer to should immigrants be required to learn English? In one sentence, what is your answer?
Can it be a sentence with like one of those semicolons in it?
Yeah.
Okay.
But it can't be a run-on sentence.
Okay.
This is grammar class.
Immigrants should be required to learn the predominant language of where they live, semicolon.
Semicolon.
I'm thinking... I guess I would say, however, that language does not need to be English unless it is declared.
So you think that they should be required to learn English?
I think that they should. Well, no, because English isn't America's official language. If it was,
which it pretty much is, if it was, you think they should be required to?
Yeah.
Interesting. I disagree with this. I don't think that they should be required to learn English. However, this is another like free market situation. I think that if they come into our country and don't know English, that it's going to be a significant hindrance to them. But
won't it be?
I'm okay with like a multicultural society, and if like pockets of society, like there's a pocket of Canada where French is the dominant language instead of English.
Well, and that's how there's pockets of Louisiana where it's that way.
Yeah.
There's pockets of tribes that still speak their own language. That's why I say they should learn the language of the area they're going to live in.
Well, I just language evolves over time, and if you say English is our dominant language, like if you can't think of the word, but if you like enforce that, like if you put it into law that English is our dominant language, then it almost stops English from evolving, because then it can't evolve in anything else.
Because then the government has to decide what English is.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
A lot of people think that y'all and ain't and yain't, which is y'all ain't, aren't proper English. But the fact of the matter is that we're not trying to keep up with the dictionary. The dictionary is trying to keep up with us. And the fact of the matter is that y'all is it's an improvement on the language. Like, we can talk better, we can understand each other better by words like y'all, because
Well, isn't y'all considered slang?
Well, it is, yeah, but I mean, if it's a word that everyone starts using, the dictionary adds words all the time, especially in the modern age with like a lot of technology abbreviations like BRB and LOL and stuff like that. I'm not sure if those ones specifically are in the dictionary, but the dictionary adds words every year. That like yeet might be in the dictionary, which is kind of a meme word. It's kind of a meme word. It means like to launch something, sort of. Like, I yeeted that over there. But like the point I'm trying to make is that the dictionary's job is to keep up with us. Our job isn't to keep up with the dictionary. So I'm worried that if you said that English is the language of the land, and you put that in stone, that would be a hindrance to the language evolving and getting better. But regardless of that, I don't think that they should be required to learn English, because it's a personal responsibility thing. I think if you come to a country where English is the main language and you don't learn English, I think you're an idiot. And I hate dealing with people who don't learn English. And I know that that's coming from an ignorant American. Most people in this world speak more than one language, and I'm an ignorant American who only speaks one language, the language of my homeland.
But is it ignorant to be frustrated because of a language barrier, or is that natural?
No. I'm not saying it's bad that I'm frustrated by that situation. I'm just saying that compared to the rest of the world, we don't know as many languages as they do, which people view us as lazy for that purpose. But the fact of the matter is that English is the main language in our country, and if you come to this country and you don't know English, you're a fucking retard, because you're not going to get by very well. But I still don't think that should be required for immigrants to learn English. And if you want to stay at home and just have every day be a struggle because you don't know the language, then
a struggle that who's paying for, Riley? You?
I don't see that anyone's really paying for it.
Well,
I think that they would be paying for it most of all. Like, if I'm working in customer service and one customer doesn't speak English very well, either way the transaction will still happen, but then I move on to the next customer who probably will speak English. But that person who doesn't speak English, everything that they do that day outside of their home where their family speaks Spanish or whatever, is going to be a struggle for them, unless they go to a Mexican restaurant where they also speak Spanish. And I really hope I'm not being racist here, but I think that, like, for me, if I was ever to travel outside the country, like, Japan looks really interesting, but I'd never fucking travel there because I don't know Japanese, and I wouldn't be able to get around, and that, like, it scares the shit out of me.
Well, you could travel with, like, an American travel group.
Like a translator would be awesome, which would be,
Well, that's talking about a vacation, not a temporary trip.
But, like, I'd rather move to a place like Norway or Sweden or Finland or those not shithole countries.
Well, for example, I've taken a lot of French. I took 4 years in high school,
Yeah.
and 2 semesters in college, and I would say, like, if I was to decide I wanted to move somewhere, like if somebody told me right now you have to pick, I would pick France, because I'd say it's going to be easier for me to adapt because of what I know and because I know enough of the language to build from there.
You at least have some roots.
And so it's just, if we're going to have a program where we have, let's put it this way. If you're for open borders and you believe everybody should just come and go, well, you're stupid, but then whatever, this is kind of a moot subject. However, if there's going to be a government program where we take certain people in, and whether it's by lottery or it's by, choosing the best of the best, this country needs the best immigrants. Whatever
They're coming
way we,
from shithole countries.
whatever way we do it, that we bring them in, and they're coming through legally and through a process, like, part of that process should be learning English. And that's not something that would be a huge cost or a burden.
I just don't think it should be a process to become a citizen of our country, because in the end, I complain a lot about overpopulation and stuff like that, but immigrants are good for our economy because they're willing to do the low-skilled labor, but they're also willing to do more for society. I don't have all the stats in front of me. I'm getting a little bit tired. I apologize, but I think immigrants overall are good, especially because our generation isn't having as many kids as the generation older than us, which, our population is going to start getting older, which we need immigrants to keep the population young and to keep the amount of workers, so that when we're old, there's people who can work and pay for our Social Security, which is a whole other different discussion. But, we still need a foundation, and immigrants can help with that. But earlier, I said you're a fucking retard if you come to this country and you don't know English. And that may have been a little bit harsh, because thinking about it again, if you're coming to America from, like, a violent situation, like the cartel,
like a refugee or something.
Yeah, like a refugee or something, or a cartel survivor or something like that. If you don't know English already, that's understandable, but it should still be in your responsibility to learn the language ASAP.
So I guess what it comes down to
frustrates me when you find, like,
force it.
Yeah, I don't think you should enforce it, but it frustrates me when you hear, like, oh yeah, she's been living in America for 12 years. And it's like, are you kidding me? She doesn't speak a lick of English. That shit frustrates the hell out of me. It's like, are you just being lazy? Like, why would you come here if you're not even going to commit to it? If I was forced to move to another country and they were a different language than me, you bet your ass I would. Every day, I'd watch my superhero movies that I love, but I would be watching them with the new whatever language I'm trying to learn with, like, English subtitles, so I can try to pick it up. It's not that hard. You just have to immerse yourself, or put yourself in the culture and the language. Just surround yourself with it. I know what
word you're trying to say. Immerse.
Thank
there
you.
Go.
You just got to immerse yourself in the language to learn it. But these people are like, I see. God, this might come out really racist, but I see Mexicans who only hang out with other Mexicans, only go to the Mexican shops where the people there speak Spanish, only go to Mexican restaurants and stuff like that. And it's like they have no interest in actually learning the language. And that's not something that I think we need to force them to assimilate to us. That almost sounds like Nazi culture right there, but it's just ridiculous that they don't even try.
One of the questions later on is about assimilation.
Yeah.
And, so we'll get to that later, but I think we've kind of, beaten this question up, but I do have one other thing, because you brought up the cartel.
Yeah.
So I just got a glimpse of, I think it was Cairo 7 or something today. They had a question of the day, which was, should cartels be labeled terrorist organizations? And I feel like there's going to be a big left-right split on that because, Trump's going after Mexico. But then
I would
again,
say that's a clear yes. I mean, I don't know what Democrats would say or Republicans, but for me, I would say that's a clear yes. But I think that cartels are it's stupid that they exist because it's such an easy solution to get rid of them.
Except with cartels, it's terrorism is supposed to be violence to promote your ideology.
Yeah.
Is there an ideology
Well,
the cartels are
I mean,
promoting?
if that's the definition of terrorism you're going with, then no. But when I think of a terrorist, I think of someone like a group. That's
group
violent.
causing destruction.
Yeah, and it's like I like watching gore videos. I think watching gore videos for me puts life into perspective. You know that in the end, we're just a bag of meat and bones. You know, when you watch someone die, literally, and I've shown you lots of gore videos. When you watch someone die, it's like you realize then and there, like, we're not much more than just meat and bones. But
you're so much more, Riley, and you would have your value so much more increased if you saw what you really were.
Well, I just like watching it before the point of death, maybe, but at death, it's like when you watch someone die, it's a powerful
at that
moment of
point,
like
you're only...
seeing the life leave the eyes. You know, just really fucked up shit. And in like 99% of the gore videos I watch, well, a lot of them come from India for just really dumb shit that they do over there. But a significant majority of them come from like the Mexican cartels at the border and Brazil because of the cartels that they have in those countries. And it's just, you know, raping women and cutting them up and all sorts of really fucked up shit. And it just, like, this is something that makes me so angry because I hate I search out those gore videos, but then I get so angry after seeing them because it's like, this stuff is so fucked up, and like the ISIS cutting off the head of like the American journalists and stuff like that. It's so fucked up. ISIS is a harder solution, but with the cartel specifically, it's so fucked up that we let this happen, and it's such an easy solution to get rid of them, to get rid of the cartels. And yet, you know,
which is legalizing drugs, correct?
Legalizing drugs and prostitution, yeah.
Okay.
You could argue that lowering the age of consent would also help with that, because then once you get rid of drugs and prostitution, then they could try to do child slavery. But if you lower the age of consent, that would prevent a lot of that as well, except for like the really young toddlers and stuff like that.
And it would also prevent people who are being taken, or like people who are being controlled by a John.
Yeah.
So like women who report to a guy
Yeah.
who aren't. You might end up with more guys seeking out women who say you're now under my control.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying the situation wouldn't get better. I'm just saying there would be also repercussions on the other side. But
it's not like the cartels would completely go away, because some of them would just turn into gangs. But still, the cartels are so powerful. It's so ridiculous that it's so obvious how we stop it, and it hasn't happened. Like, at this point, we're just encouraging the death of women being raped and murdered and stuff like that. You know, we find bodies floating in the river all the time. It's real fucked up.
I think, I mean, and since I've reminded myself of the definition of terrorism, I now have to change my answer to no. But if you take it more for just realistically what it is, a group of people causing destruction, you know, I would say it's terrorist, or it's at least mass violence.
And they're trying to make these mass shooters appear as terrorists, and a lot of the mass shooters, they leave their manifestos behind talking about their ideas. We've had the mass shootings recently, not that recently, a couple months ago in Texas and Ohio, I think, and they were against illegal immigrants. Like they targeted Mexicans specifically, and those people, yeah, they're terrorists. They have an ideal, but then there's people like the Columbine kids. I don't believe that they had any kind of reasoning. They were just angry and they hated their life, and they're not really trying to promote an idea, but they're still technically
they were
domestic terrorist.
Treat kids like crap, because they
got
went after
bullied.
the popular. Yeah.
Yeah.
But what about?
But there's people who just do it for chaos reasons, just because they want to see people die. That's not really a message.
Yeah. Well, and some people create a message or decide on a message because they have an underlying.
The guy who has the highest score right now, 59 kills, the guy from Las Vegas who shot out of the window.
The guy who has the highest kills.
Highest score. Haven't you ever played Call of Duty?
I have, but these are real humans we're talking about who have.
So that guy, no manifesto. We have. I haven't researched on him in a little bit, but as
yeah,
far as I'm aware,
we
he
still
had
don't really know.
no reason.
Yeah.
He
and
just one
what's
day he
funny
was like,
is,
you know what? Fuck him.
What's funny is I actually I watched a video of like probably the 7th or 8th grader, like black kid, talking to his teacher, who's a sassy black woman, and she's off camera, and he's explaining it's not terrorism because, and then he Googles what terrorism is, and she said, no, that's wrong. And he said, oh, so you know more than what the dictionary says. And she's like, yes, that's right. And the kid pretty much owns his teacher by saying, no, he wasn't a terrorist because he doesn't fit within this definition.
Yeah.
So, but whether it's terrorism or mass violence, I mean, the cartel falls into that. So I just want to ask that question. But anything else you want to talk about?
No, that's pretty good for this episode.
All right. Well, everybody, thank you for listening to us. Not
we are
watching,
Quadrant
but
4 Politics. Yeah, thank you for listening. Did you want to do the outro, Matt? Take it away. All right, let's see here. Thank you for listening to Quadrant 4 Politics. We appreciate it. Please email us or leave a comment. You can email us at quadrant4politics@gmail.com. And thank you again for listening. Gosh, is there anything else I am missing?
Have a great day.
Yeah, share us with your friends. Tell your friends about our show. That's the only way we can grow, is by you going on Facebook and saying, hey guys, I found this really cool podcast. You should check it out. Because they'll listen to you because you're their friend. Mm-hmm. Yeah, get us more listeners. That's your job.
All right, take care.
Bye.